Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick, and it is the finale of our draft previews. And we're looking at the wide receiver draft class today. And this is important, Justin, because we said it at the beginning of the month. This is the fifth year that Talking Giants is doing draft previews. The first 4 years, the last position we preview, the Giants take in the first round. Quarterback 2019, offensive tackle 2020, wide receiver 2021, and then offensive tackle last year. Every single year we have predicted with our last preview pod what position the Giants are going to draft. So get ready to pick one of these wide receivers.
Woo! We did it. That's how I feel. That is my emotions in one noise and one note. How are you? I'm so excited.
I'm good. I'm heading to New York the day that everyone is listening to this. So I just want to do a quick, before we get into these wide receivers, schedule, because we haven't really publicized it too much. We should make a graphic this week for it too. So Wednesday night, and then if you just listen to the podcast, Wednesday night, we're going to be live streaming our podcast, and you could check it out. You could listen on the podcast app or whatever. Our draft day podcast, where we do our mock drafts, which is this is our mock draft. We've watched every play that we're going to watch pre-draft. This is it. So that will be Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we'll be live streaming every single minute of the draft. I think it turns out into about 17 hours of live streaming that we do.
That's about
every
right.
single minute of the draft. We will be there for you. Friday, we will have a podcast out recapping the first round pick that the Giants make, or maybe they'll do a trade or something crazy. And then Monday, we'll have a full draft recap. And then obviously we'll have film breakdowns on every player the Giants draft as they come. So very, very excited for this. We're having Robert Smits is joining us for our live streams this year. Obviously, the Football Grump is going to be there, so we are going to be working 20-hour days to do this draft thing, man. It's basically the biggest time of the year besides week one. Yeah,
super excited. There is no other weekend. There is no other week that's really like this too. And then of course there's UDFAs that follow too, and we get all excited, we get all buzzed up. I mean, hey, Skinner,
we recap every single UDFA the Giants signed, one.
Bobby Skinner gets sometimes a little bit more excited for the UDFAs that come along here than your average fifth, sixth round pick that we got here. So buckle up.
You don't want to miss those podcasts. Those podcasts make your preseason viewing a much better experience, because it's okay, I got info on all these guys. These guys talking about what they're good at, what they struggle at. In UDFAs, we're not breaking these guys down future on the team. We're just basically telling you, hey, this is what this guy can do. This is what this guy can't do. Likely to make the, be on practice squad, maybe make the roster. And last year we had Timon Fox and Ryder Anderson off the UDFA list, taking snaps for them.
Two big players. But enough about UDFAs. Enough about guys that we'll talk about 2 weeks from now, whatever. I guess, based on Talking Giants history, like you said, Bobby, I guess we're going to be talking about the Giants' first-round pick, maybe out of these 8 guys that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, there's a very good chance that we are talking about a future Giant on this episode.
And let's be real. I think it's out of the players that we have, I think it's down to 2, and it's the first 2 guys we'll be talking about.
It might even be down to 3. All right, so let's get into this wide receiver draft preview, Justin. We're not going to talk about Jackson Smith-Njigba just because we do not expect him to be there at pick 25.
But is he wide receiver 1 in this class with you and I?
Yes, for me he is.
Yes, me as well.
My wide receiver 1 in this class outside of JSN is between 2 guys, Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison. And I think I'm going to give the slight bump to Jordan Addison, the wide receiver out of USC that we're going to talk about right now.
Oh, I thought you were going to go the opposite.
No, Zay Flowers is more exciting to me. He's more fun to me. But Jordan Addison, I think he's a little more fail-safe than Zay Flowers, where Zay Flowers has some drop issues. He's obviously, Jordan Addison's not big, and Zay Flowers is 2 inches smaller than him, even though has a little more weight on him. But it is, we're splitting hairs here because it was a tough decision for me on these guys. But Addison, man, I think he's just going to be a really good wide receiver in the NFL. Transferred from Pitt to USC. He had 1,600 yards receiving at Pitt the year before, 900 this last year in 11 games. He's just been a highly productive route runner or a highly productive wide receiver who's just kind of a route running master, right? And his speed, I think, is good. Like, he ran a 4.49 40, had a bad 10-yard split, but I think his speed is better than what that combine testing says. But it's still not going to be like what separates him from the pack is like the speed that this guy has. But he is very quick, I think, with good bursts. And again, to me, he's the best out of these guys we're talking about, the best route runner. Like, he's got diverse, quick releases that allow him to win quick. He knows how to set DBs up. Like, he works leverage, and once he does separate, he will stay separated, will not allow DBs to get back into that catch space. And then, I think he will create big plays in the NFL. There's a question of, like, will he play slot outside? He played more outside at USC, more slot at Pitt. With this Giants offense, they value guys who can do both. And I want to see him on the outside, at least to start. Like, I want to see what he can do out there, because I think this is a guy who can separate deep and can track the ball and create, those 20 to 40-yard plays.
Yeah, Jordan Addison is wide receiver 2 on my board as well, and the gap is a little bit further away than what you have between Jordan Addison and Zay Flowers. And for me, it comes down to the route running. It comes down to the route running, and definitely Jordan Addison, hey, let's use draft cliche phrases here. Jordan Addison has a higher floor, and he is a very safe player, and I think he would be a very safe pick for the Giants at 25. Every movement has a purpose, and he plays with intention. I have that like in my plus category. There is no wasted movement.
Yeah, there was never a play, or never is a strong word, but there was almost never a play where I went like, man, if you clean that up a little bit, that could be a better play. Like you said, like, it's down in, down out. He's doing what is the right thing to do.
Yeah. And, PFF does one of my favorite things to look at every year is for wide receivers and quarterbacks. They put out a spray chart of where they catch a football or where they throw a football. And if you're hot, if you're red, that means that you're catching the football at an above average rate in that spot than your peers. If you're blue, then it's vice versa. And Jordan Addison, really, USC only really used him on like the right side of the field. They gave him like that DeAndre Hopkins effect where they only line him up on one side of the field. Didn't have a lot of experience catching the ball over the middle of the field. He really did live outside the hashes and outside the numbers by the sideline. But I still feel like he could be effective at any place and spot on the field. I think that was a scheme thing.
He was a killer from the slot at Pitt.
Yeah.
With Pickett. Like, he was dominant there.
And he ran like, I saw like drag routes that USC would run, but I didn't see a lot of crossers. But I don't necessarily think that that's a Jordan Addison thing. I think that's a scheme thing where I think he could fit well on running crossers over the middle of the field. He is sneaky after the catch. He's not fantastic, doesn't have that like breakaway speed, but he does kick a second gear when he needs to. He averaged 40 yards per catch when targeted 20 plus air yards down the field. And I do think he knows how to kick and hit a second gear when he goes deep. He knows how to play the position and just seems to be a good football player. There's a lot of guys that are in this wide receiver class where it's like, well, you're a good athlete, but maybe you're not a good receiver, so you take a chance on the athleticism. I think Jordan Addison is a good enough athlete in the NFL, but I think he's an even better receiver, and that is why he is wide receiver 2 for me, because he's a good football player and he's a good receiver and he's a good route runner, and I think that is what this Giants offense is missing. Not a guy that can get separation solely based off of speed, not a guy that will get separation solely off of schematics, but a guy that can get separation on the outside because of his good route running, and that's basically it.
And he's going to play in the slot too in the NFL. Like, yeah. I don't see this guy being a slot only or outside, or at least, like, I don't see him ever getting like an 80-20 split. Whereas like the next guy we're going to talk about, Zay Flowers, I do see him getting a much higher rate on the outside than I do Addison.
Really? Okay.
But again, he has like great route cell. Like his nuance to his route running just consistently loses defenders. Like, he'll get your hips open and then turn the other way. And I think his route breaks are crisp and quick, and I think he's got good like hip sync to burst out of them, and that's when you see his best plays to me. And then also it's like, hey, if you're playing off coverage, he can eat up that cushion and get you going one way, break the other way, and again,
Yes.
have yourself a 40, 50-yard post. Like, the testing numbers do not, if you were just watching his film, you wouldn't say this guy's going to be a bad tester.
Yeah.
So, and I think he was a pretty good yak guy too, like with quickness, like not necessarily like just make you miss ability, but just setting stuff up and being able to break off of that. So
yeah, slippery after the catch. 7 yards after the catch per reception with an average depth of target at 10.7. That's pretty solid. That average depth of target isn't crazy low, but it's also not crazy high. I was actually kind of surprised to see the average depth of target being so low. Probably why it was so low is because I think over 20 of his 65 catches came from screens. So he kind of was a guy that seemed to get targeted deep, or he was going to kind of getting targeted by screens. But just because he got a lot of screen targets doesn't mean that I think he's still a good route runner. I think that's kind of just how USC used him there. I do think he needs to add more NFL strength. He's a little bit lighter, but Joe Shane buzzword, he's super young. He is 21 right now, and he's turning 22 next January. That is super, super young. And I think if he's there at 25, this is the guy that I think Joe Shane will run to the phone, call for, and Jordan Addison may be a Giant.
if you ask me who I think is going to be a New York Giant, like the best chance to me, it's Jordan Addison.
I agree.
One, I do think Zay Flowers is going to go before pick 25. There's buzz around that. Now, you talked about needing to add weight or adding strength. He does struggle with press, right?
Yeah.
But he also has these good releases where he'll sidestep and make you pay for press too. Right? Like he's not there's some lesser wide receivers we'll talk about where it's press just gives them issues, man, and they don't make you pay. Where he will lose in press coverage, like Caillou Blue Kelly of Stanford had some really good reps versus him, but he also made him pay by being able to sidestep that on his release and then be able to stack and beat the guy deep. So the safest wide receiver in range of the Giants to me is Jordan Addison. Now that I'm talking about it, I think I'm kind of going back Zay Flowers over Jordan Addison now that I'm talking this out on
I was surprised. I was surprised to hear you kind of jump back because I thought for a couple weeks there that you were Zay Flowers clear number 2 and that's where you were.
Well, I did Addison later than I did Flowers.
Okay, fair. One final note I want to include on Addison. He had a drop rate of 10% in 2020 to 2021, and then he really brought that down to 3.3% this past year at USC in 2022.
He also had a really high catch rate of 75%.
Yeah, so it goes to the whole I will never know what causes.
It's this whole class has drop issues.
Yeah, I will never know what causes good wide receivers to just have a drop problem, and then it's for me it's as simple as, dude, just catch the ball. Jordan Addison started catching the ball in 2022, and I hope he doesn't go back to dropping the ball.
Let's have a conversation about drop rate.
Sure.
This is just a football conversation.
Yeah, I kind of hate talking about it.
Me too. One, it is important. It's catching the ball. It's the main thing to do as a wide receiver.
And it's bad to drop.
It's important. But I will never knock a player 2 notches down because of drop rate. Does that make any sense? Because in reality, you're dropping one out of Darius Slayton. His drop rate I think was 9 to 10%. That's of catchable passes. So it's you're dropping one of 15 to 16 targets. Yeah.
In certain moments, it hurts. That's the thing.
Oh, yes. Drops are... I'm not saying they're not important, but they are not going to be something that just totally is just drop you out of can't do it. Because, and again, if that's the case, we're really not... Then don't draft a wide receiver for the Giants. Which also is a fair point. I'm not... I actually am... in the boat of there's probably gonna be other players I'd like more than wide receiver at 25, but
right. It's a tough thing to talk about. It's a weird. It's dude, just catch the ball. I'm and I can't be typical WFAN sports radio and just get outraged over a drop because it's dude.
You look at some of the best wide receivers in the NFL and look at their drop rate, and then it can be high.
Yeah, if these guys really wanted to catch every single ball, they would. I can't sit here and get just outraged over it.
next player on this list, I think I might be moving him back up to 1 for me.
I think you gotta. I kind of want to disagree on something. Let's disagree on something. Let's embrace it.
I am, because it's like I kind of went Jordan Addison because he's more safe, but you know what? Zay Flowers is 10 pounds heavier than Jordan Addison, even though he's at 5'9", the wide receiver out of Boston College. Zay Flowers, 182 pounds, had over 1,000 yards for them. To me, Justin, you're gonna say 5'9", like, oh, slot guy. To me, Jordan Addison might be a slot guy in the NFL. Zay Flowers, to me, is an outside wide receiver. No, like, there's no doubt in my mind about it. Jordan Addison, it's like he could be, some people may think he's slot, some people think he's outside. To me, Zay Flowers is an outside wide receiver in the NFL because his speed, despite testing numbers, at 5'9" guy ran a 4.42, his speed is awesome, and it uncovers him at all 3 levels. And his route running, Justin, needs to be cleaned up a little, but it doesn't need like a complete overhaul. And even with some like stuff that needs to be cleaned up, like he is an elite separator, Justin. Like he separates better than Jordan Addison does, and especially deep. And Boston College liked to use him down the field, and he would cook DBs.
Tangent. Boston College would run like this vertical offense with a terrible QB and an even worse offensive line. And it was so frustrating to see Zay Flowers cooking DBs, running wide open with a shit ton of separation, and either the Boston College quarterback isn't seeing him or he's absolutely getting demolished by a bad offensive line. It was infuriating to watch from a production standpoint, but fun for Zay Flowers. Continue.
Yeah, and he's just like able to like get your hips open and turn the other way, and he has that ability and he has that agility and burst to just stay at 100 miles per hour. Like there's no slowdown in his game. Now, you think for a 5'9" guy, I think, oh, quick game. That's where Boston College didn't really use him in the quick game, and I wish they would have done a little more. But that's where his route running needs to clean up the most. Like down the field, his route running doesn't really need much work. He needs some polishing, but his quick game routes are very like rushed and rounded. And then also more so than Jordan Addison, he's a huge weapon in the yak game. Like he is elusive. He'll make you miss and he'll outrun your ass. So now that I am talking about these two guys, Zay Flowers to me actually is better than Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison is just a safer player to me than Zay Flowers, but I think Zay Flowers is a better wide receiver than Jordan Addison. But this is the only guy on the list where it's like, I don't know if he's going to be there because there is smoke about him going between like that 10 to 15 range.
Well, this is really close-minded of me, especially, analytics Justin of, if a guy runs routes well down the field and if he's good, with the ball in his hands, why should it matter what size he is? But man, I'm looking at, continuing to look at the trend of wide receivers that are 5'9", 5'8", whatever, that are really short, and how many of those receivers have productive NFL careers. And we're not talking about Zay Flowers as a 3rd or a 4th round pick where it's like, hey, why the hell not? This is a 1st round pick, and you draft a guy in the 1st round to, kind of be a little bit of a stud. Even if he's not a stud, you're expecting him to be a starter and here for a long time and sign that 2nd contract and be a franchise player. I'm putting Zay Flowers in a box of, and this is a bad guy move, I'm putting Zay Flowers in a box as a short guy in the NFL where I need to see a guy like Zay Flowers or even a couple guys like Zay Flowers really start to buck the trend of short guys just not being able to hack it in the NFL for a long period of time. And I could be wrong with that. Tell me I'm wrong.
I have a pro comp for Zay Flowers.
Oh boy,
I'm
here we go.
surprised no one's ever said. Now a lot of people are saying Antonio Brown because Antonio Brown, like, what was Antonio Brown's height?
I think he was 5'10". That's my guess.
Yeah, I believe he was 5'10". So here's my pro comp for Zay Flowers, and I haven't seen anyone say this. Tyler Lockett.
Okay, how tall is Tyler Lockett?
5'9".
Okay, did not know that.
No, Lockett's 5'10".
Okay,
sorry. But same weight, same arm length. And I think he's Tyler Lockett with actually more yak ability, right? And Lockett is a really, really good down the field threat. Like
he's
they
one of the
play
best in the league.
A very similar way. And Lockett was drafted in the 3rd round, but the league's getting smaller. And here's what I want to talk about, Justin, because we're talking about height right now. Let's talk about the Giants roster right now and height. Who's the 2 for sure starting wide receivers on the Giants right now? Darius Slayton and Isaiah Hodgins.
Sure.
6'4" and 6'1".
Yep.
Paris Campbell just signed. He's 6'1".
Yep.
He gets like grouped into these short guys. He's really not short. Sterling Shepard, not here for long. Really the only one is Wan'Dale Robinson, and he is a slot-only guy, and to me, Zay Flowers is going to play on the outside of the NFL. Now, he'll get slot reps, but he's going to play on the outside in the NFL. Now, a lot of these conversations are why I'm actually like, everyone talks about wide receiver. It's not the position I'm targeting in the 1st round. Like, if you ask me what position, I'm going defensive tackle or corner.
Yeah, like Brian Branch and Kalijah Kancey. Like, those are 2 players
Brian Branch, I would take before these 2 guys. Kalijah Kancey, I'd take over these guys.
Same.
Brian Brzee, I would think about it over these guys. There is... let me just pull up my board for the Giants right now. So, like, guys that could be there that I would take over. Kancey, Branch, Miles Murphy has been a weird one that might fall. Brian Brzee, I'd probably take these guys over Brian Brzee, but if they took Brian Brzee over him, I'd have no problem at all. Joey Porter Jr., if he somehow fell. This is why I think it would almost be good for the Giants to not take wide receiver this year unless they think one of these guys are going to come in and be their true blue wide receiver 1. Like they've created a wide receiver room that can get through this season and not be a huge issue. Like, it's not going to be some huge advantage to them, but you have guys that you can go out there and trust to get some separation and make some plays for you. No wide receiver 1. Like, it's still a big need for the Giants, but if you see a defensive playmaker who you think is a better player, to me, you have to take him over wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree with that. And obviously, we'll talk more about that on Wednesday when our mock drafts actually shake out. But Zay Flowers, I agree with you with yards after catch. I literally agree with you with everything that you said. But I'm just going with Jordan Addison. I do think Jordan Addison is he may not be a better separator, but I think he's a better route runner. Does that make sense? Do you think that's a good take?
Yes, but he's not a better separator. And Zay Flowers route running in the quick game, like that stuff can be improved upon. Yeah. Right? We're not talking about it. With Zay Flowers, we're not talking about a guy who gets just corners all connected to him. It's like it's mostly stuff versus zone. Like, hey, you need to be a little more crisper versus zone in the quick game. And part of that gives you some hope for that is like Boston College didn't really use him a ton in the quick game. Like, a lot of his underneath stuff was like drag routes and stuff that allowed him to get yak, and he create touchdowns and big plays out of that. But like, he wasn't used on like the slants, the sticks, the quick outs.
He ran a lot of whip routes, which, I mean, those are just, I mean, that's like the undefeated play in Madden that you run like on 3rd and short or whatever. Like, you run on like a 3rd and 4 and it like works every time. I have like a minute compilation of Zay Flowers just running whip routes, and it's super fun. But yeah, outside of that, not a ton in the quick game. 10.8% career drop rate. Again, bringing up that stat, that how much does it mean? Maybe it means
he does have drop issues. Like you mentioned, like he has drop issues, and they come at some big times too. So that was, out of all these guys where we're going to talk about, he has drop issues, at least the games I watched on film, Zay Flowers were the most consequential, and that is an issue too. So like, the thing that stops me from being full bloom, like, take this guy at 25, is that, and the fact that he's 5'9". Those are the 2 things that stop me from being if he was 5'11", I would be like, he's my guy at 25. If he had no drop issues and was 5'9", he'd be my guy at 25. But those 2 together, I think there's going to be better players there.
And I know that, like, his film, like, he's not slow on film. He's quick on film, and he's fast. But he did run a 4.42.
I don't care about that time. He's fast.
If he ran in the 4.3s, I would like him a lot more.
Yeah, to me, that's a 40 time I don't care about. He's faster than he's like we said. Jordan Addison is like. Speed is a huge weapon for Zay Flowers.
Yeah, absolutely. 22
with
turning.
Addison, his speed isn't some major weapon.
Zay Flowers, 22, turning 23 on September 11th. It's kind of a tough birthday.
The next guy on this list was overhyped and then became a little underhyped, I believe, and that's Quentin Johnston, the wide receiver out of TCU. Now, he fits the frame, right? 6'3", 208 pounds, had a 40.5-inch vertical jump at the combine, had over 1,000 yards for TCU. And here's the take I have. I was actually talking with Robert Smits about this. Max Duggan held Quentin Johnston back a little bit. It was frustrating to watch Max Duggan. You know, when we talk about some stuff like down the field, contested, a lot of that was like Max Duggan just underthrowing footballs or being laid on the ball. And it's like, throw this ball to Johnston. But he is, out of these guys, like the true like ex-wide receiver who can go and win at every level of the field. And he will beat you deep. Like, his speed is really good, and he attacks vertically and is able to like naturally stack and get in on top of corners. And he's got the quickness and get off to make guys miss in the quick game. And he was, a lot of his yards came on little drag routes, you know, and being able to, you know, catch a ball underneath and go and take it. And now there's stuff about his game that's not liked, right? Like, I think his releases are fairly effective, but can be steppy, and press can give some issues here or there, but he didn't face a ton of that. His routes aren't very crisp, like they can be grounded, and they'll let the cornerback get it back into the catch space and close windows off, and can gear down a little bit and telegraph routes at times. But I think he does so much well where I think he's getting underrated, and it's like, this is a guy that you can work with out of TCU with that size, this athletic ability, and the production. You know, and we'll talk about, like, hey, he's not a hands catcher, and another guy who has a high drop rate, but I also think he tracks the ball really well, will split the safeties. I'm doing Seahawks comparisons here. He reminds me of DK Metcalf, where it's like a little bit of like a big, freaking huge wide receiver who doesn't necessarily play like a big, huge wide receiver, but also is super freaking productive too.
Dude, it was, you know, I did a lot of my wide receiver work before the Senior Bowl just because I wanted to energize myself to get into draft prep. And it's like, well, Quentin Johnston, like, even, you know, there was questions of like JSN and injury problems, and, you know, what is he injury prone?
He was projected to go like top 5 at one point.
Yeah. And now it's like Quentin Johnston's not a first round pick, and no football has been played. Since
I fully believe he is a first round wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree. There was a point where I'm like, Quentin Johnston's wide receiver 1, and now I'm like, well, I don't, and it's because of like,
there's question marks out of all these guys, right? There's question marks out of all these guys, but all these 3 guys, and only these 3 guys, are the guys I picked 25. I'm happy with it. Quentin Johnston falls into that. I'm happy with him at pick 25.
No, it's crazy. The criticism that Quentin Johnston gets is that he doesn't play like a big physical wide receiver. Yet, if he played like a big physical wide receiver, yet he was slow as hell, he would be criticized even more for being slow as hell and a contested catch only guy.
Well, and a lot of times, like, the contested catch situations are the issues of Max Duggan. Like, there's ample amount of plays of him going up and making some wild plays on the sideline. But Max Duggan held him back at times, which is crazy for a guy who was like in the Heisman voting, and that speaks to that TCU offense. With, you know, we just talked about Ken J. Miller on the last episode and Steve Avila on the episode before that. You know, so it's set up for a quarterback to succeed. But yeah, like, I think Max Duggan like stopped him, and he can go up and make those high plays, you know, 40.5-inch vertical jump. So again, he doesn't always play like the 6'3", 40-inch vertical wide receiver, but you do see it there. You see the speed that this guy moves with at his size.
I think he has the fastest 40 out of the top 4 wide receivers.
He didn't run at the combine. What did he run at his pro day?
Why did I write that down? Fastest 40 out of the top 4 wide receivers.
Might be from his pro day.
That's something that I wrote down, and I don't think I would have wrote it down for no reason.
At his pro day, he ran a 4.51. So
no, that is wrong. I was wrong, Justin. Maybe take that out. 10th in the nation in yards per route run. That is a correct stat. That is a correct stat for sure. 10th in the nation in yards per route run. And that's a stat that I like to look at just kind of like on an efficiency standpoint. If you're running routes, are you catching the ball and are you getting yards? So Quentin Johnston was good in that category. But he is faster than his size. This guy's not slow, and he is a weapon with this ball.
He can
and
split
with the ball
middle
in his hands.
field open safeties.
Yeah. And in the yak game. Like, and, we talk about, I was talking about that Sprite chart for PFF before. He is equally targeted in all levels of the field. Behind the line of scrimmage, in the intermediate part of the field, past the sticks, and deep. Like, and even getting towards like the middle of the field and the hash marks as well. He was targeted all over the field.
Yeah, in the intermediate game, like I think he explodes out of his breaks and has like really good change of direction speed. Again, there is some stuff that needs to be cleaned up, about his routes where again they can be rounded. He can almost be moving them too fast where like it lets the cornerback play into his hips and can close those windows. And almost like telegraph because he's just going so full speed. But that's stuff that can be worked on. And I think for a guy who can win vertically, like he comes back to the ball well too. If you're a guy who's respected deep vertically, that's when the curl routes are the most valuable. And Quentin Johnston does a really good job of selling verticals on those and fighting back to the ball and those and creating separation on those. And those are chain mover type plays when you got a guy like that. So this is a guy who is 6'3", can win at all three levels of the field, and has room to grow. He is totally in at pick 25 for me. Totally in.
Yeah, I don't think the Giants met with him. From what's reported, don't know.
Yeah, I think they just did some stuff with him at the pro day.
Yeah, faced a ton of off coverage, had free releases, and he ate on those free releases. He really did. It really allows him to look explosive and have good route sell. This is the guy out of the big four, out of the top four wide receivers. This is the guy that gets me excited on like crossers, like running those Brian Dable crossers over the middle of the field and having Daniel Jones target him. Because not only does he have the speed, he has the physicality where maybe even if he's blanketed a little bit, that maybe he can come away with the catch. But also, if he is schemed wide open, I mean, look out. He's going to break tackles, and he has the speed to maybe even outrun some guys as well. But he did, for a guy that's so big, I still have a question here. How is he against press man? Which maybe that question shouldn't even be here, but because he faced so many free releases in college and we have these physicality questions for a guy that is so big, will he even struggle a little bit with press man even with the size?
Yeah, and that's product of playing the type of defenses that they played with the type of offense they played. But there was times when he would get in press and he'd struggle a little bit, but he wasn't like someone who was like, okay, he struggles in press and he's just connected with throughout the rest of the route.
He is a body catcher. That is a thing, though.
Yeah, where Zayflower has drops, a lot of the guys have drops. Quentin Johnston, it bothers you a little more because he is a body catcher. Like he doesn't go up and like he's not even a body catcher down the field. He's a body catcher in the short area of the field. Like if he's on a drag route, he'll let that ball come into his chest, and it's like just go out and snag it and run.
Yep.
And it obviously leads to drops. But like drops down the field to me weren't the big thing. It was actually it was like uncontested catches that were when you'd see that. All right, next guy on this list is SeatGeek, and today's episode is sponsored by SeatGeek. If you don't know what SeatGeek is, they're a ticketing app that makes buying tickets super simple. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events every single day on SeatGeek, including sports, concerts, festivals, and more. And guess what? The Devils are back. The Devils are back. I hope the plane I'm on tonight has TV so I can watch the Devils and Rangers, and the Devils win, baby. Probably not going to win. They always want to make sure that you are getting a good deal, so when you're on the app, look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. Every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, and SeatGeek is the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swaps. Now that I'm talking about SeatGeek, it reminds me, I use SeatGeek for my trip to New York. Guess which game I'm going to?
You are going to a professional game in New York? You're not going to a janky game, are you?
No, I'm going to the Mets on Wednesday night.
You're going to the Mets on Wednesday night?
Jolly Olive invited the company.
Oh, wow, yeah. We're going to record? We're going to be done before then?
We recorded like 4.
Oh, I thought we were going like 5, 6. This is news.
No, we record at 4 because we want it out on the podcast by like 6 or so.
Oh,
or we'll figure it out, even if I'm late.
Okay, right. You're part of JM Mets.
We'll figure it out. Guess what? The tickets were cheap, so even if I'm not able to go, I'm not feeling bad because SeatGeek was great and got me a great deal. great prices. And every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And SeatGeek is the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swaps. Maybe I'll do a swap. That's maybe what I'll do is I'll do a swap. They always want to make sure that you are getting a good deal. So when you're on the app, look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. We've got the hookup. Use code GIANTS for $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code GIANTS. Click the link in the description to download the app. All right, next guy on this list.
Oh, boy.
Let's talk about it. Jalin Hyatt, the wide receiver out of Tennessee, who had 5 touchdowns for Alabama at 6 foot, 176 pounds, ran a 4.4 40, a 40-inch vertical jump, and had over 1,200 receiving yards for the Volunteers this year. Very slender wide receiver, Justin. And he basically got all of his production from simply just running past the defenses. Almost all of it. Like, it was, and most of his production to me was a lot of scheme stuff. Now, he has great speed. I don't think he has elite speed, but he does have great speed, and that obviously allows him to uncover deep, and if there's a guy who can eat up cushion, it's Jalin Hyatt. Like, you play 10 yards off him, he's still going to be able to run past you, and turn those hips of the DBs, and he's just got subtle movements to just stay at full speed. But to me, man, there's so many question marks. And a lot of it is because of that Tennessee offense, right? And then a good part of it is just because of his game outside of running those deep passes. Because a lot of his deep catches, Justin, that were touchdowns, were simply just busted coverages because they play in these wide splits, free releases, and a very limited route tree for Jalin Hyatt. Like, very, very limited route tree. Now, there's guys who run a limited route tree because that's the offense they're in, and I get that. But I want to see more. I want to see those guys master the route tree that they do run, and Jalin Hyatt to me does not do that. Like, his route breaks are extremely rounded. He floats into coverage. Whenever he needs to make a sharp break, I think he gears down way too much, even though there is bursts out of them, and he struggles with press. If a guy gets physical with him, they're able to stick with him throughout the route. And he's not much of a contested catch guy. To me, Jalin Hyatt has way more questions than answers for me to be comfortable with him.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is like a projection. And, when you start talking about projection stuff, I don't consider myself the smartest guy in the room to be like, Jalin Hyatt, he can project as this in the NFL, because Tennessee it's not like watching football. It's like watching a track meet. That's what watching Tennessee's offense is. Great, you can run in a straight line. Great, you can run in a track meet. Great, you're fast. But that's not football. Like, they play, and I'm surprised more college teams don't do that, because it kind of works for Tennessee. If you got a quarterback with a big arm, you got receivers that can run fast, and maybe they're not the best route runners, teams should kind of do those wide splits and weird stuff a little bit more and put defenses in conflict. But they don't, and Tennessee did it well this past year. So, Will Fuller comp, like Deshaun Jackson? I mean, those are guys that can come to mind.
Deshaun Jackson is way too high of a comp for him.
But guys that just kind of run deep.
Will Fuller can make sense to me. But to me, there's so much issues with his game. This isn't just me being like, oh, he plays in a fake offense. There's flat out issues in his game when he's doing anything besides running past defenses. I'm telling you, a lot of times when he's running past defenses, it's not because he's so fast, he's able to stack a DB and get past them and separate. A lot of times it's just the defenses, they got a lot thrown at them, and one guy plays it wrong, and bam, he's wide open for a touchdown. Out of the 5 touchdowns he had versus Alabama, I thought one was really impressive. And it was a post route, and it was actually a touchdown on Brian Branch, who we both like a lot. But even then, it wasn't a very crisp route, but it was just his speed was able to get some vertical sell, get Branch on his heels, cut off for the post, and make a tough catch with Brian Branch and coverage, right there off of the off coverage. But again, he was able to have that vertical sell. So, hey, he's got something that a lot of guys don't have, and that's the most important thing, or the most important prerequisite for a wide receiver.
Speed.
But there's so many issues to his game where I am not comfortable with him at all in the first round. And even honestly at pick 57, like it leaves me a little queasy because that offense, like historically, does not translate to the NFL with wide receivers. You saw it with guys like Corey Coleman. Like it is that Baylor offense. And I don't know. Like I am, and it would be one thing if they played him like they played Cedric Tillman. Like Cedric Tillman can play wide receiver, even though he's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's awesome. He had to deal with press and, he did a good job route running. Jalin Hyatt is just simply fast, run past defenses. And that's basically it. And then the speed allowing him to open up in the intermediate, but it's not because of great route running. It's just because of great vertical sell that he has.
Yeah. I mean, the numbers on him are nuts and the explosive plays are nuts. Something that really just impresses me the most. 75% catch rate with an average depth of target of 14 is crazy. And averaging 7.3 yards after the catch per reception with that average depth of target of 14 yards is even more crazier. And again, it's kind of like the system, but you can't, can you fault the guy, in the system? I do see, in the NFL, him running crossers, him running go routes, him running drags. I think he could be successful doing that. Maybe even running posts or mini posts. I could see him being successful in there. I'm rooting for night one of the draft. If we were talking Chargers or if we were talking Raiders or talking Broncos, I wouldn't be rooting for this because then we have to play Patrick. We would have to play Patrick Mahomes twice a year. But just as an NFL fan of a team in the NFC, I think Kansas City, it would be ideal for Jalin Hyatt because Kansas City doesn't really need a number one wide receiver. They have Travis Kelce to eat up however many targets. Get Jalin Hyatt in there. Get like a legit vertical deep option in your offense that's going to stretch the field. And if there's ever a busted coverage, Pat Mahomes is going to put the ball 40, 50 plus yards in the air and Jalin Hyatt's going to go get it. And I think he does have, decent ball skills, kind of tracking that ball in the air. That's what he showed at Tennessee, that's what he can do. And in certain situations where defenses kind of mess up or, God forbid you want to go single high against Patrick Mahomes, good luck to you, sayonara. Jalin Hyatt can eat, and I can see that could be a landing spot for him, or at least in that kind of offense.
It's going to be interesting to see where he goes. Like, he could go freaking top 20, and this guy, I can see this guy.
He could go 25.
I can see this guy falling. Like, I really can.
He's 21, turning 22 in September, so I think this is a back brain worry. I have front brain and back brain worries. I think it is a back brain. Yeah, a worry. It's a worry that he may be drafted by the Giants because they like the athleticism, they like the straight line speed, and maybe they think that he can project that he's a good route runner, even though we've never seen him run routes before. You just need a lot
of work. Like I'm glad they met with him to get to figure him out. But he needs a lot of work. All right, next guy on this list is a guy that you kind of love out of Ole Miss, and that is Jonathan Mingo, 6'2", 220 pounds. The dude is freaking big, yoked up, ran a 4.46 40, 39.5-inch vertical jump, had over 800 yards for Ole Miss this last year after not really producing before that. I'll let you talk about him because you like him so much, but it's like you read 6'2", 220, and to me, it's like all the good things, he doesn't play like that besides blocking. Like he's a great blocker, and they would even align him in line, and he would block with success. But to me, Justin, he struggles with press man and off coverages when he's his best, where it's like, this guy to me might be a big slot.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the kind of projections have him as a big slot too. He's 22, he's turning 23 next April, so his birthday was on 4/20 lit. So he'll be 23 next April, so he kind of fits that mold. Now, I will say, we started out this draft process, and I did my first write-up and my first watch of Jonathan Mingo pre-Senior Bowl. The Draft Network had him as a fifth-round player. I am now seeing Jonathan Mingo as like a third-round consensus, but like second round, and then fans are saying first round. I definitely don't agree with that.
Oh, I think he's a third-rounder.
I would be happy with Jonathan Mingo in the third round. I don't think he's going to be a giant. I don't think he fits the Brian Dable, Mike Kafka mold of what they're looking for, and I'm not just saying size. Why not?
Yeah.
I just don't see it, man.
If he's a big dude who can play in the slot, I could see it being a good fit where we're not asking five, like, I talk about Zay Flowers being a 5'9" guy, you're gonna have to play on the outside, or Addison play on the outside, where it's like, hey, we got a little bit of a reverse that situation. We got a 6'2" guy who we can put in the slot here and there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, yeah, but Jonathan Mingo is a gotta have it player, and I really haven't said that a ton this month. Maybe I'm getting a little bit tougher with the guys that I watch, but Jonathan Mingo I label him as a gotta have it player for me. Good size and what seems to be good speed and quickness too. Like it's surprising and it shocks you. He has a lot of wow plays, diving catches, one-handed catches all over the place. He seems to have sure hands. He has one season of real production. Strong physical player. I have written down that he can beat press and he won't be bullied. Now, I trust your evaluation a little bit more than that. I have that written down. At least I kind of saw that a little bit. After running a lot of short curls and drag routes versus Vanderbilt, there's one specific play where I think Mingo has like very good route sell. He fakes like he's going to sit short. He breaks deep. He sells the route. He splits the defenders, and he's gone. And I think on that play, he hits 22 miles per hour. So this is a guy that's 220 pounds, and he's hitting like 22 miles per hour, which is like in the 99th percentile of like what all players hit. Yes, he was running in the open field, but this is a guy that's 6'2", 220 pounds, who showed on a specific play good route sell, and also hitting the open field and for an explosive play touchdown. 10 catches of 30-plus yards and 2 70-plus yard catches in 2022. I think that's like Jalin Hyatt territory of like those like big 70-plus yard plays. And the blocking. The blocking was like even before all kind of like crazy. Those highlight plays and seeing like his quickness on tape and his speed. Watch the game against LSU. They're like in the red zone. And it's like a goal line situation.
Just you'd line him up at tight end.
Jonathan Mingo is in a 2-point stance, like behind the offensive line, in line, and he's blocking. And they're like running towards him. And he's doing well. And they asked him to do this like repeatedly. So Jonathan Mingo, good blocker, physical. I think that stuff matters in the NFL, especially when you're running, outside zone. I like him, man. I really do. And, we started this draft process where he was a day 3 guy. Now he may be a day 2 guy. Where are you exactly comfortable taking him? All I know is that I can see Jonathan Mingo being a really solid player in the NFL because I think he's a good enough route runner. And I think that physicality and that size, if you're not just going to be a lumbering, slow, contested catch guy, I think you got a shot.
So the reason why I say big slot is, one, that blocking ability, which is very important for the slot in the NFL. But to me, he's just so much better versus off coverage than he is man. Like when he's got like he's not fast off of the line of scrimmage, but he does have great deep speed, and when you get him in space, like he's able to throw his hips and like you said, uncover deep, and he did that a good amount of times on film.
Yeah, build up speed. I think that's the phrase, right? Build up speed.
Yeah, he's got the build up speed. Versus off coverage, and again, like influence DBs and work subtle movements to get open, like he's working at almost a double move, and is a great leaper with that, like a great catch radius. Like he doesn't have any issue catching the ball when it's thrown his way. Like he uses his size, he uses his leaping ability, and he catches the ball. But to me, versus man coverage, one, he doesn't have a fast get off, but his releases to me are really, really bad. And instead of him trying to work vertically and go physically through a corner, he will veer like 5 yards inside or veer 5 yards outside, and then he's not able to stack the cornerbacks when he's in man coverage. So that's why I'm like, does this guy big slot? Now, at 6'2", 220 pounds, and bench pressing 222 reps, can that be fixed? Absolutely. Absolutely. But you got to put the work in and do it, because right now it's an issue for him. Like out of all these guys we talk about, besides Trey Palmer, no one dealt with press to me worse. Not because he was getting bullied or anything, but just his way of beating it was like the worst way possible. Where again, he's like veering 5 yards inside instead of just trying to attack vertically, attack the back of the corner and stack them. Like he was winning this stuff for them. So, but I like Mingo too. Really liked him down the Senior Bowl. Had some awesome
Yes.
awesome stuff down there. Has some awesome stuff on film, but it's just the down in, down out stuff I want to see more out of Mingo. But yeah, with that size, that ability, I do think Mingo's going to be a good wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah. Out of a lot of these guys in this draft class, like I feel most confident about Mingo being a solid pro. I do.
Next on this list is a guy I'm dumbfounded by why he's not talked about more. And the only thing I can think of is that he's 23 and a half years old. And that is wide receiver out of Wake Forest, A.T. Perry, who's 6'3.5", 200 pounds. Justin, he had 2,400 yards the last 2 years for Wake Forest, having over 1,000 yards both seasons. He is a big, fast wide receiver who knows how to separate. Like, for his size, his speed is really good, and he naturally uncovers deep. We talked about with Jonathan Mingo. This guy's release package is beautiful, and he is going to stack and separate vertically consistently. Consistently, you put him on man coverage, he's able to do that. And then in the other types of routes, besides just winning vertically, he works leverage really well. He's a technician at the stem of the route. He uses a cell and is able to burst and go out of it. And then with that vertical ability, he's got that ability to sell vertical and then uncover underneath, boxes out defenders. Like, the only thing I can see about him is the age, and he's not like, he's not much of a leaper or a contorter to the ball in air. Like, again, another guy with drop issues, but he is a hands catcher. Why is A.T. Perry not talked about more? To me, he's a second-round wide receiver, and he's looked at as like a late third, early fourth rounder. Is it only because of the age? Like, this is a guy where it's like, I'm not understanding the talk about him. Like, is there something off the field with this guy? Like, that's where I am with A.T. Perry, because he does so many things well at that size that there's got to be. Is there some other off the field issues? Does he not practice hard? Like, what is the issue with A.T. Perry? Because I love this guy. Like, the only thing to me that worries me is the age.
Yeah, and the Giants, this is one of the few guys on this list that we're talking about, Mingo being included, that they did not meet with the Giants. So you're including A.T. Perry just because you like him and you think he should be going higher than projected, right?
Yes.
I agree with you with the aggressiveness. I mean, his length is awesome. His wingspan's absolutely awesome. He kind of stutters a little bit. He kind of uses the kind of like aggression, kind of pushes off some plays. He's smart in the way that he kind of pushes off, and
the way Hodgins separates.
Yeah. That's actually it's a solid little comp. I think he's a better athlete. So I think he shows resilience. He kind of to play through some press coverage and more physical corners as well too. So yeah, I agree with you. A.T. Perry was kind of a late find by you. We added him a little late, but I'm glad that you did. And there's a lot of people that kind of will put him in the same breath as like Trey Palmer, like going in that same range in the draft. But I think A.T. Perry is just a much better wide receiver.
Yeah, I don't get it why this guy's not talking. Like, if this guy's 5'11", like, I think he'd be a middle round guy, but he's 6'3" and he plays that way. And again, yeah, is he some straight burner? No, but he's got the speed and he's so good at the release and able to stack corners that he's going to win vertically consistently. Like, he's going to win those. He's going to win those routes, and he also does so many other things well. Where it's like, yeah, is there some gear down to his game? But he's 6'3" and he's able to separate the stem. Like, I really, really like A.T. Perry out of Wake Forest.
Where is Lake Worth, Florida?
It's like right in like smack dab middle of Florida.
Is that close to you?
Couple hours.
Couple hours, right? Well, that's where he's from.
What up, homie?
What up?
All right, next on this list, Charlie Jones, wide receiver out of Purdue, 5'11", 175 pounds, ran a 4.43 40, had 110 catches for Purdue and 12 touchdowns this last season. Was a transfer from Buffalo and then Iowa, and he only has 1 year of real production and is old. Like, let's get all these prerequisites, like transfer, 24 and a half years old. But my man, he produced for Purdue, like led the college football in catches, was second in yards. This is a guy who played outside in college, will be slot. To me, he's a guy who's going to be picked in the middle rounds, and I get it. Like, I'm not saying he needs to be picked in the second round or anything. This guy's going to produce in the NFL. Like, he's not very fast, obviously, especially for his size, but he gets open consistently. His releases are quick, efficient, quick ability to stack. And to me, he runs a full route tree. He runs it beautifully. He understands tempo, and he has like an A+ IQ for getting open versus zone coverages. So this is a guy you put in the slot, and he's going to succeed. Like, he's put him on the outside, he'll struggle to separate versus man coverage, but he does enough to get some targets out there. Also draws a lot of pass interference because he beats guys quick at the start of the snap. And has a great ability to track the ball. So, he will pull the pass interferences like that. And we talked about all these guys having drop issues. This guy plucks the ball out of the air, had a 2.7% drop rate, which is elite. To me, I think Charlie Jones is going to be a guy who lasts a long time in the NFL. And I'm doing my best. To not compare him to every white slot wide receiver ever.
Yeah, and I was going to make the cliche joke of when is he going to be drafted by the New England Patriots?
I was doing my best to not to do it. I was in that Cover 1 mock draft on Friday night, and the guy drafting for the Raiders took him, and I was like, what are you going to do with Hunter Renfrow, bro? What are you going to do with Hunter Renfrow? So I have him as a late third-round pick, who will probably go 4th, 5th because of the age, and I get that.
He gets open, though. He gets open.
Again, he's going to get open. He's going to win at the start of snaps. You're going to put him in the slot, and you're going to trust him there. And he's going to be a guy who gets a second contract in the NFL. I'm guaranteeing it, even though he's going to be old.
And he's not small. He's a slot.
No, but he's just not fast or anything.
Right.
But he had some good stuff versus Joey Porter. I mean, Joey Porter Jr. got the best of him at the end of the day, but he had a couple plays where he did some stuff on him, but Joey Porter Jr. was able to just swallow him up and just kill him physically on the outside. But on some of the
that's an outside corner going up against a slot receiver.
Yeah, so on the underneath stuff. So, all right, let's finish off our draft previews, Justin.
Wow.
With a wide receiver. This guy took a top 30 visit with the Giants. He's 22 years old, and that is Nebraska wide receiver Trey Palmer, who transferred from LSU.
Go Big Red.
Had over 1,000 yards this season for Nebraska. To me, this is a guy who had the fastest 40 time for wide receivers at the combine with a 4.33. But he is a guy who needs a ton of work, and he's going to be drafted where you give him that time to work. But he basically, right now, he's only a deep threat. Or get him the ball underneath in quick game and let him do some yak stuff. He's got some make you miss ability. But there's so much that needs... Basically, everything needs to improve to his game. And even getting too deep. Can you get to the deep part of the field? Because he struggles. He's a bad route runner. His releases need a ton of work. And press. Out of all these guys we talk about, press just eats this guy up.
Yeah, he is not a physical wide receiver. He struggles with physicality. He has almost a 14% career drop rate. We talked about drop rate throughout this episode. When it's 14 for your career, that's not great. But he is going to be drafted based on his long speed. I mean,
why do you think the Giants brought him in for a top 30?
Yeah. Are you asking that as a
I'm asking why?
Legit question. Because his speed, and the Giants like athletes. They like guys that can run down the field. Ideally.
Yeah, there's so much work to his game. So I have him as a 6th rounder.
If they take him in the 5th round, I'm not damn, there's other guys that are there that I don't think I'm going to be like that.
Definitely not. But it's just there's so much that needs work to his game. He telegraphs his route. He is basically a deep, he's hey, we're throwing this ball deep or bust with Trey Palmer.
Not to get like this, but day 3, 5th, 6th round picks. You look at the Cam Browns of the world, the Carter Coffins of the world.
This is a fun day 3 pick.
This would be a fun day 3 pick. The Giants need a kick returner. The Giants need a punt returner, and Trey Palmer has that experience. And Trey Palmer can come in here as a developmental wide receiver that doesn't need to play right away. He probably would find a way to play in his rookie year just because that's how the New York Football Giants operate as a franchise. Is that, this guy's going to stay on the bench. No, he's not. He's going to find a way to get in there. But ideally, in an ideal world, the Giants have enough wide receiver depth. Maybe they even take one in the 1st round, right? The Giants take a wide receiver in the 1st, 2nd round. They can keep Trey Palmer on the bench. He can be the kick returner, the punt returner, utilize that speed there, learn, and he'll maybe play eventually. But the Giants do need that role, right? And maybe that's why, that's part of the process on, why Trey Palmer may be worth it despite having a lot to work on.
Yeah, and really the only returner we have on the team is Jamison Crowder. Who's like, hey, would you rather have Jamison Crowder or would you rather have Trey Palmer
Darnay Holmes
and work on him? I'm talking about actual guys you're going to return for a whole season.
Adoree Jackson.
Don't say that.
Too soon.
guys that we want to be returners for the whole season. So it's like,
correct.
Who do you want? Like, if you ask me, who do I want on the roster as a 6 wide receiver, Trey Palmer or Jamison Crowder? Even though Jamison Crowder would impact more right now, I would actually say Trey Palmer. And Trey Palmer gives you a speed element. You throw him out there, and he does have that ability to run past guys, and throw the ball deep to him. So it would be a ball of clay, a very fast ball of clay, but needs a ton of work. So, all right, that's an episode. Bam, we did it. We did it. We are a couple of days away. Again, Wednesday night, we'll be live streaming our draft podcast. So I may or may not be going to a Mets game. I don't know yet.
Do it.
We'll see.
Thursday, Friday, Saturdays are going to be long enough.
And Sunday.
And Sunday. Let's record. I'm pre-bowling on Monday. Wednesdays are my bowling league. I'm not bowling in my bowling league. I don't think I'll be able to make it. But let's record at 4. We'll officially put it out there that we're recording at 4:15. Everybody be there. Everybody get hype in the YouTube chat, and then go be part of JM Mets and make it for the Mets game. Maybe I'll join you. I don't know.
We'll see. Robert Smith said he's going, so
love that. Okay.
So we got to show him a good time while we're in New York.
Jolly Olive.
All right. We'll see you guys on Wednesday night. Damn. We're almost there. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.